the iPhone 8 versus the iPhone 7 Plus. So the iPhone 8 is actually coming out, well, pretty soon. It's actually coming out next month. So let's take a look and see how it compares to the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus. Let's take a look and see if it's actually worth upgrading from the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus to the iPhone 8. So as always, grab some popcorn and enjoy this in-depth comparison between the iPhone 7, the iPhone 7 Plus, and the iPhone 8. Okay, so first off, let's talk about the design, because the design is actually the biggest difference between the iPhone 8 and pretty much all the previous iPhones. So the iPhone 8 is the first iPhone ever since the original one back in 2007 to feature a complete redesign. So the bezels have been removed almost entirely, and now we get these very, very thin side bezels, and we get the same thing on the bottom. So the bottom bezel has been removed almost entirely, and then the top one, even though it's still there, it's much smaller than the one on the iPhone 7 Plus. And the best part about all this is that the iPhone 8 is so much easier to hold in the hand, since it's not only shorter, but it's also not as wide as the iPhone 7 Plus. Yet it comes with a much larger 5.8 inches display versus the 5.5 that we had on the iPhone 7 Plus. Now I'll be covering the display in section number 2 of this video in more detail. And even when comparing it to the 4.7 inches iPhone, the iPhone 8 is not that much larger, so it's almost as easy to hold in the hand as an iPhone 7 or an iPhone 6, but it does come with a much larger 5.8 inches display versus 4.7. Now another major design change would be the back. So we go from an aluminum back like we had on the iPhone 7s and almost all the previous iPhones to a full glass back. So similar to what we had on the iPhone 4S and the iPhone 4 back in the day, which by the way was actually my favorite iPhone design. Which one was yours? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, the reason why the back is made out of glass is in order for wireless charging to work, because yes, the iPhone 8 is finally coming with wireless charging, something that it was lacking for so many years. Other design changes include the back-facing camera, which is now vertical, and then the sides of the iPhone are now made out of stainless steel instead of aluminum like we had on the previous iPhones ever since the iPhone 6 and yeah, even the iPhone 5. So you can't really see this on these models, but on the final release units, this would actually be stainless steel. So very similar to the black stainless steel Apple Watch. So a really premium design. Now, when it comes to the actual colors, we do get quite a few changes here as well. So the iPhone 7 came in silver, gold, rose gold, matte black, jet black, and then we also had that special red color. So yeah, 6 colors for the iPhone 7. Now the iPhone 8, however, is only coming in 3 colors. So black, silver, and then there's also this brand new color, which is going to be called blush gold. Now this one actually looks pretty good in my opinion. It definitely looks a lot like the Apple brown leather cases that you can get for the iPhone. Now moving on to section number 2, we have the display. The display is actually the second biggest change when it comes to the iPhone 8 after the design. So apart from the display size increase, which is 5.8 inches from 5.5 on the iPhone 7 Plus and 4.9 on the iPhone 7. So besides the display size increase, we're also getting a display resolution bump. So from 1080p on the iPhone 7 Plus or 1334 by 750 on the iPhone 7 to a massive 2800 by 1242 or 2436 by 1125. So yeah, depending if the virtual home button area would be taken into consideration. So 1236 by 1125 is the most likely option when it comes to resolution of the iPhone 8. So why is that? Well, this is also the one that we've already seen hinted in the HomePod firmware. And besides this hint, this will also be 3 times the Retina resolution. And yeah, if you do the math, that's actually 462 ppi for a 5.8 inches display. So pretty big improvement from the iPhone 7 Plus, which came with 401 ppi, or the iPhone 7, which came with 326 ppi. So basically the more pixel density, the sharper the display actually is. Now this 2436 by 1125 resolution might only be for the active display area of 5.15 inches. So if this is the case, then this won't actually include a function bar with the home button, so the one on the bottom of the display. So if this is indeed the case, then the full resolution for the entire iPhone 8, for the entire display, would be 2800 by 1242. So that would actually be for a 5.8 inches display. And that would actually translate to a PPI of 528 basically on par with the Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus. Now, another big display feature which is expected to be included with the iPhone 8 is going to be the ProMotion display. So what's a ProMotion display? Well, this is something that we've seen on the new 2017 iPad Pros. So this is essentially a 120 Hz display panel. And the reason why it's called ProMotion is because it can actually adjust its refresh rate based on the content that you're viewing. So if it's like a 24p movie, it will actually change the refresh rate to 24 Hz. If it's a YouTube video, it's gonna change it to 30 Hz, and so on. And the cool thing about a ProMotion display is that it will not just preserve battery life, but everything will be so much smoother. I mean, once you use something like a 2017 iPad Pro, which uses such a display, just go to the Apple Store, try it out. It's crazy. I mean, it's really good. So once you try that out, it's really hard going back to a 60 Hz panel. So everything feels so slow and so laggy. Definitely give it a try if you have the chance. But by far, the biggest display change is not the resolution increase, the display size increase, or even ProMotion. So the biggest display change is the fact that we're finally getting an OLED display panel. So unlike the LCD panel that we still have on the iPhone 7 and pretty much every single Apple product except for the Apple Watch. So the Apple Watch is the only Apple product that currently comes with an OLED display. So an OLED display can actually turn off individual pixels, since the pixels, they provide both the color and the backlight. So this actually means that you don't need an external light source like you do with LCDs. Okay, so what does this actually mean? Well, it means perfect blacks, which everyone loves. I mean, you won't be getting those, grayish blacks that you get with LCD displays. With all the displays, you get perfect black since the pixels can be completely turned off. Besides this, you also get improved contrast, and overall, an OLED display provides the best viewing experience, at least when it comes to display panels. Okay, so moving on to the camera. So when it comes to the camera, we're getting some pretty big updates as well. So the back-facing camera is now vertical, which is, just a small design change. It doesn't really matter. But what does matter is the sensor, which, by the way, remains the same. So it's still a 12 megapixel sensor on the back. However, the biggest change when it comes to the camera on the iPhone 8, at least the back-facing one, is the fact that you will be able to shoot 4K video at 60 frames per second now. So 60 frames per second 4K video, and also slow motion in up to 1080p up to 240 frames per second, which is up from 120 in 1080p. So we've seen this hinted in the HomePod firmware, and what's even more exciting is that the front-facing camera will also support 4K at 60 frames per second. That's just crazy. When you think about it, the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus, they were actually limited to, 4K at 30 frames per second on the back-facing camera, but on a front-facing one, we were actually limited to 1080p at 30 frames per second. So a massive improvement when it comes to the front-facing camera. It's just crazy. Going up from 1080p 30 to 4K 60 is just crazy. Now, because of this, the front-facing camera will also be getting a resolution bump. So you do need 8.3 megapixels if you want to record 4K videos, by the way. So 8.3 or higher is required for 4K video. Now the front-facing camera, because of this, it will be bumped to either 9 megapixels or 12 megapixels. So yeah, either way, this is going to be a big improvement for both in both resolution and video quality when it comes to the front-facing camera of the iPhone 8. So what about nighttime shots? What about low light shots? Because yeah, low light on the iPhone was never that impressive. Well, other improvements to the iPhone 8's camera include OIS, or optical image stabilization, on both the camera modules. So on the iPhone 7 Plus, we only had OIS on the wide-angle lens, not on the telephoto one. Now, the aperture, when it comes to the aperture, this is also getting an improvement. So from f1.8, which is what we have on the iPhone 7, to f1.7, that would be on the back. And also same goes with the front-facing camera. So from f2.2, which is what we had on the iPhone 7, to f1.8 or f1.7. So yeah, the front-facing camera is actually getting a pretty massive boost when it comes to low-light photography. And then on that dual camera module on the iPhone 7 Plus, the telephoto lens, so the one that actually zooms in, that one was f2.8, which was, well, it wasn't that great in low light. Imagine 2.8 versus 1.8. Yeah, the main lens, so the wide-angle lens, was much better in low light than the telephoto one, so the zoom lens. So since we are now getting optical image stabilization along with an aperture increase to f2.2, between f2.2 to f2.4 on the zoom lens, on the telephoto lens, low light photography is going to be much better for the zoom lens on the iPhone 8. So yeah, some pretty big changes are coming to the cameras on the iPhone 8. Who's excited for photography with the iPhone 8? I definitely want to do some in-depth camera tests as soon as the iPhone 8 comes out. So definitely subscribe if you want to see those as soon as they come out. Okay, so what about the actual specs of the iPhone 8? Well, spec-wise, the biggest change is going to be the Apple A11 processor. So the Apple A11 processor is finally going to be based on a smaller 10nm process. Now, I don't really want to go into too much detail because I've already done a separate in-depth video just on all the specs and the benchmarks. If you want to check that out, the link for that is in the description, by the way. It's a pretty detailed video. But yeah, long story short, the performance increase on the iPhone 8 with the Apple A11 processor is just mind-blowingly, unbelievably amazing. If that's even, it's insane. So just to give you an idea of how crazy the performance gains are on the Apple A11 processor. So the Geekbench 4 scores have been leaked, and that's 4600 as the single core score and 8500 as the multi-core score. So this is just amazing. This basically means that not only does it completely crush every single mobile processor out there, even when it comes to Intel processors, including the one found in the iPad Pros, so the Apple A10X processor, which by the way, Apple says that these are way more powerful than most laptops out there. So yeah, in case you're wondering, the Apple A11 processor is more powerful, single core wise at least, than even the top of the line 13-inch MacBook Pro 2017, and it's really close to performance, single core wise again, when it comes to the 15-inch MacBook Pro 2017. I'm talking about a 7920 HQ processor. So that's a top of the line Kaby Lake chip that you can get in any laptop out there. Single core wise, the scores are really close. Now, multi-core, obviously, the 7920 is much more powerful since it also comes with 4 cores and 8 threads. But yeah, it's crazy considering that this is what Apple has managed to achieve in basically a smartphone. That's just mind-blowing. Okay, so that was the Apple A11 processor. So what about the RAM? Well, RAM-wise, we are getting 3 GB of RAM, so basically the same amount of RAM as on the iPhone 7 Plus. Now, the iPhone 7 did come with 2 GB of RAM, and now we're getting 3 GB with the iPhone 7s Plus and the iPhone 8, but still 2 GB, by the way, in case you're interested, on the iPhone 7s. So yeah, the 4.7 inches iPhone 7s comes with 2 GB. All the other iPhones come with 3, and the iPad Pros, they come with 4. Now, moving on to the special features of the iPhone 8. There's so many special features, so many new features that are coming with the iPhone 8, so I'm not going to cover all of them. So here is the major ones. So the first one would be a smart camera. That would be on both the front-facing camera and the back-facing camera. So this is basically a new API that basically adjusts settings based on the scene that it's detecting. Now, the second one would be wireless charging. So this would be via charging pad, which you'll have to buy separately. Then face recognition is also going to be a big one with all those sensors on the sensor bar. So we're getting an iris scanner, an IR receiver, IR transmitter. Okay, what else? Well, Face ID is replacing Touch ID completely. So yeah, that's happening. And then we're also getting a smart function area that replaces the home button. Improved speakers, tap to wake, improved haptic engine, improved water resistance, by the way, from IP67 to IP68, and so many new features. I've actually done a final features video in case you want to take a more in-depth look at all the features that the iPhone 8 is going to come with. But yeah, overall, feature-wise, the iPhone 8 is coming with some massive improvements. Okay, so I've talked about the specs, the display, the design, the camera, but what about something that's really important in a phone? The battery life. Well, when it comes to the battery, the iPhone 7 Plus came with a 2900 mAh battery, whereas the iPhone 7, that one came with 1960 mAh. So yeah, pretty big difference between the two models. Now, the iPhone 8 is actually going to come with a stacked motherboard and also an L-shaped battery. So the battery is going to be shaped so that it actually fills all the empty space inside the iPhone. So the motherboard, since it's stacked, is going to be shorter and not as wide as on the iPhone 7, and that's why we can have that L-shaped battery, so a larger battery than on the iPhone 7. So yeah, the battery itself is going to be much larger than the iPhone 7 one, even though it's going to be smaller than the iPhone 7 Plus one. So it's going to be about a 2700 mAh battery. That would be the size, the capacity. Now, the iPhone 8 is going to come with an OLED display and also a much more efficient Apple A11 processor. So this means that the battery, even though it's smaller than on the iPhone 7 Plus, it is going to last at least as long as the iPhone 7 Plus one, if not even longer. Okay, so all this sounds pretty good, but what about charging this thing? Because charging was always an issue with the iPhones. They charged so slowly unless you used a more powerful charger such as an iPad charger. So the iPhone 8 is finally going to come with fast charging, finally. So the iPhone 8's Lightning port is going to support USB-C fast power delivery. So yeah, that would be through the Lightning port, and it's going to be much faster than the one we have currently with the iPhone 7s and pretty much all the iPhone devices. Now, charger-wise, we are getting either the same 5-watt adapter, that's USB-A to Lightning that we have on the iPhone 7, or we are getting a more powerful adapter, which is going to be USB-C to Lightning. Now, moving on to section number 7, what about the models of the iPhone 8? So display-wise, there's also only going to be one model, so that would be the 5.8 inches iPhone 8. So there's not going to be an iPhone 8 and an iPhone 8 Plus, just the iPhone 8, which might even be called the iPhone Pro, by the way, or the iPhone Edition. I would say that the most logical name would be either the iPhone 8, the iPhone Pro, or simply just calling it the iPhone, like they've renamed the iPads. Which naming scheme do you think is more appropriate? Now, when it comes to the capacity, we are getting a slight increase here. So on the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus, we had 32, 128, and then 256. So 3 different options when it comes to storage on the iPhone 7. Now, on the iPhone 8, we're only getting 2 options, so 64 and 256. Now, this is both good and bad. So this is good because the baseline is now 64 gigabytes instead of 32, so that's pretty awesome. But it's also bad because if you have something like the mid-range option of the iPhone 7, so the 128 gigabytes iPhone 7, and if you use more than 64 gigabytes of storage, which I'm guessing most of you do, then you would actually have to upgrade to the 256 gigabyte model, which is obviously going to be more expensive. Speaking of expensive, let's talk about the price. So we already know that the iPhone 8 is going to be much more expensive than the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus. Now, some reports have said it's going to start at about $1,000, but apparently it's going to be actually cheaper than that. So the iPhone 7s and the iPhone 7s Plus would actually have the exact same prices as the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus. So that would be $770 or 720 pounds, I believe, for the 32 gigabytes model, and $969 or $920 for the highest end 256 gigabyte model. So the iPhone 8 would actually start at about $900. That would be about 870 pounds in the UK, and that would be for the 64 gigabytes model. And around $1,000 for, or 970 pounds for the 256 model. So in the end, it is more expensive than the iPhone 7s and the iPhone 7s Plus and the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus, but it's not as expensive as we all believed, which is some pretty good news. But then again, it is pretty expensive. So yeah. Okay, so in the end, should you upgrade from an iPhone 7 or an iPhone 7 Plus to the iPhone 8? And I would say yes, definitely. I mean, if you have an iPhone, if you have any older iPhone, this video is not sponsored by Apple in any way, by the way. This channel is not sponsored by Apple in any way, but the iPhone 8 is the biggest change ever since the original iPhone. So if you're coming from something like previous generation iPhone, this would actually be definitely a massive change in pretty much every single way. Unless you obviously don't care about the big bezels on the iPhone 7 and you like, you know, the camera and the display overall. So you don't really need an iPhone 8, but when it comes to the changes, this is the biggest change ever since the original iPhone. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about all this. Are you upgrading to the iPhone 8? And if so, from which iPhone? Other than that, if you have enjoyed this video, then feel free to subscribe for more iPhone 8 content. Now, I have a lot of interesting and exciting videos coming soon, so definitely stay tuned for those. Don't forget to enable notifications, by the way. You can do that by simply tapping on that bell icon, and you'll be notified as soon as I upload a brand new epic video. Also, feel free to give this video a like if you have enjoyed it to let me know. And also, let me know in the comments if you're epic enough to make it until the end of this video, and if you've finished all that popcorn. But yeah, this was pretty much it for now. So yeah, thank you all for watching and for making it until the end. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Who's excited for the iPhone 8? Yeah, coming pretty soon. Yeah, signing out. So see you in my next one. Signing out. Yeah, cheers.